Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our country has to offer, especially health care. Across every state, every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me. Taxi. Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show. The Chairman, Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Lavine, and I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. And ladies and gentlemen, we have breaking news. The United States and Israel have launched a military campaign against the mullahs in Iran. This is a situation that's long in the coming. It's a historical event. It has the ability to remake the power structure in the Middle East and perhaps and hopefully restore common sense and moderation and the future of the world. Because what we are talking about is not just the Middle East, but we're talking about attacks potentially against Europe as well as the United States of America and our allies. So let me just bring people up to date. What's happened, the president, in an 8-minute address to the nation in the middle of the night, made it very, very clear that negotiations between Iran and the United States through its intermediaries had broken off, that the Ayatollah's regime was not negotiating in good faith. The intelligence information was as follows. They were doing everything they could to restore nuclear weaponry to that regime. They were continuing to arm and support terrorist proxies, and they were building up their ballistic missile capacity. And they had increased all of those efforts incredibly strongly and in a very dangerous way. The president gave every opportunity for negotiations, but the war against the mullahs in Iran is on. This is not a war against the Iranian people. This is against the theocratic, despotic regime that's killed estimated 30 or 40,000 people, their own people, in suppressing the demonstrations against that dictatorship, as well as tens of thousands who are imprisoned. This is a theocracy that brooked no dissent, tortured, killed, executed in public squares their adversaries. Now, why is this important? It's important that this threat to world civilization, to Western civilization, be ended once and for all. These are a death cult. They're dangerous. They're an existential threat to everyone. It had to be taken out. The great lessons of our time is that you cannot negotiate with these kinds of people no more than the English could negotiate with Hitler and make a deal that would have a lasting peace. Second lesson is you cannot fight a defensive war. If you're on a defense, you cannot win. And the third great lesson, and this explains the resistance of England and France to get involved and support other than rhetoric, and not even the rhetoric was strong, the United States and Israel. They're scared to death of the infiltration by these Islamist communities in their own countries. They have fifth columns in their own countries that are a threat to the existential survival of England as well as France. So this is dangerous business. President Trump was as good as his word. He set down red lines. He's met those red lines. One can argue about whether these red lines were met in time. I'll defer to my good friend Eric Lavine on that subject. But the fact of the matter is we are now at war with Iran. How long this war will last, whether there will be regime change quickly, I don't know. Whether the Islamic Guard have to be obliterated or if they'll turn sides and support the people of Iran, I don't know. These are all breaking events. But what we do know is once and for all, under the leadership of President Trump, as opposed to the appeasement of previous regimes, starting with Carter, allowing the first Ayatollah to come back from Paris, next with Obama, giving them a green light to build a military program, support terrorists, gave them lots of money, allow them to go forward with their nuclear ambitions, and Biden carrying on that regime of Obama, of appeasement. We now know those days are over. Eric, your thoughts?
So let me start by saying this is how you defend Western civilization and the American-led world order. And let me also say, God bless Donald Trump for taking this action. God bless our troops, and may God keep them and the IDF safe in this righteous war against a nihilistic Nazi death cult that is seeking to destroy Western civilization and the American-led world order. This is absolutely the right thing to do. Now, Richard, you said we're now at war. This is where I beg to differ. We have been at war with Iran since 1979, or at least they have been at war with us. The only question has been when we would decide to fight back. They came into being by taking American hostages. They stormed the embassy, kept hostages for 444 days, murdered 241 Marines in the Beirut barracks in 1983, killed over 20 service members in Khobar Towers, are responsible for 1/3 of the dead and wounded in Afghanistan and Iraq, had a direct hand in the bombing of the USS Cole, attempted twice to assassinate the President of the United States, and have been attacking American service members in Syria and Iraq hundreds of times with no retaliation. So now we are finally fighting back. This is a regime that seeks to completely undermine American national security interests. So for the United States, the choice was whether we were going to be at war with them at some point. We were going to fight back. I should say we were going to fight back at some point. And the question is, well, we're going to fight back now when they're militarily weak, economically weak, politically unpopular, or will we, like Obama, Biden, wait until they're financially stronger, they're militarily stronger, and they've successfully crushed political uprisings? I would submit to you that many more Americans and Israelis and Arabs and Iranians have died because of the feckless appeasement of Barack Obama and Joe Biden, and will die, God forbid, if any, will die in this effort for regime change. Let's be honest. This is clearly about regime change, and that is the right goal. This regime was not going to give up its nuclear weapons program. It was not going to give up its ballistic missiles. It was not going to give up its support for international terrorism. It was not going to end its efforts to destroy the Jewish state of Israel. It was not going to it's not going to give up its efforts to unseat the American-led world order and destroy Western civilization. This is absolutely the right thing to do. So in terms of the timing, I don't want to pat myself on the back too much, but I was saying that this attack would come sometime around Purim. Just historically, it just seemed to rhyme. But in all honesty, what truly seems to have driven it, from what I'm understanding, is our extraordinary intelligence. We apparently were waiting for when the Iranian hierarchy, political and military hierarchy, would be together in one spot. And that's why everyone's saying, why were we attacking during the day? Apparently, that's when the intelligence came down that the Ayatollah and his other henchmen would be in a single spot, much like the Israelis would attack back in June, or when they attacked Hezbollah leadership in Beirut. This is an effort to initially decapitate the regime. I have not yet heard. I do know that there have been reports that some of the highest levels of the Iranian government have been killed. We have not heard, or there has not been confirmation as to whether or not the Ayatollah has been killed. Hopefully, he has been, but we don't know yet. For those people who are all bent out of shape about the president taking this action, he absolutely has the authority to do it. Whether you want to use the War Powers Act, as long as he consults with Congress, and there's no question that Marco Rubio has briefed the Gang of Eight, the intelligence, the heads of the intelligence committees in the House and the Senate, and the Foreign Service committees in the House and the Senate. So, and within 60 days, he has to report back. That's assuming the War Powers Act isn't unconstitutional. But even if it is, Trump has 60 days before he has to go back to Congress. So he absolutely has the authority to do this. For those people who are saying, what comes next? This is terrible. People setting their hair on fire. Well, let me say this. The first thing is, unlike Iraq, which was put together artificially by the UK and France after the First World War, of peoples of diverse cultures and histories that had nothing in common, Iran, ancient Persia, is an ancient culture that has a common history, a common language, an established border that has existed for centuries. The idea that it's going to fall apart in the same way as Iraq just doesn't hold water. In terms of the American invasion of Iraq, everybody says, look how difficult it was to mollify Iraq, to stabilize Iraq. Well, let's remember, the primary reason we had trouble stabilizing Iraq is because malevolent actors, particularly Iran, were trying to undermine America, kill Americans, and undermine our efforts to stabilize the country. Iran is no longer there to destabilize Iran. These guys are going to be thrown out in the region. The Arabs are with us. Saudi Arabia has issued a very strong statement supporting the American effort and the Israeli effort attacking Iran.
In that regard, Eric, in that regard, what I found totally unfathomable is, they want to attack the U.S. bases, so they were attacking Arab countries. They're attacking.
I was just going to make the point. They made a colossal blunder. The Arabs are trying to play it both ways. That's what they typically do. Unfortunately, they're not particularly reliable allies. But the Iranians made a tragic for them mistake by attacking Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, and Bahrain. They would have been perfectly content to sit it out. But once he attacked the Gulf states, they have now issued the strongest possible terms of support for the American effort. Another thing to keep in mind, unlike when we invaded Iraq, we all remember when Dick Cheney made the unfortunate statement that the Iraqis will come to the street and welcome us like heroes. So our attack was supposed to bring them into the streets. The Iranian people are already in the streets. The Iranian people are already saying, please help us, please help us. We want to topple this regime. So we have finally answered that call. Unlike Obama and Biden, who betrayed these people, led to their, by their silence, caused their death. Trump is acting, so they're already there. People are saying, well, what if the country's going to fall apart? What's going to happen? Well, I'll also make this observation. The only reason that the Israelis were so incredibly successful back in June, and our attack on the American attack on the nuclear facilities was so successful, is because we have incredible intelligence, obviously at the highest levels of the Iranian government. So between Azerbaijan, the Israelis, and ourselves, our intelligence, it would not be surprising to me if we're already in the process of forming a shadow government that will be able to take over when hopefully the Ayatollah's regime falls. So these are very different. And to the people saying, well, what if it falls into a civil war? Well, I'll make this point. Even if it does fall into a civil war, which I don't think it will, but even if it does, a civil war is still far better. Entrenched, nihilistic Nazi death cult, hell-bent on killing Americans and hell-bent on destroying the Jewish state of Israel. And if it does fall into a civil war, because there's so much unanimity of opinion about what should come next, between the United States, our Arab allies, the Israelis, I think we'll have a very strong hand in deciding what comes next and taking the side of a particular party in the civil war. So this is only a good thing. This is only leading to good things. God bless Trump, God protect our troops, and God protect the Israelis.
And I think I agree with everything you said, and I believe that's absolutely essential that the politics of domestic upheaval that we've been observing in the United States be put aside. We need national unity. We need support for our president. We need support for our military men and women who are doing the tough job. This is not a problem that was just going to dissipate by its own accord. The people in Iran who were rising up against the dictatorship did not have the resources to take these people out. They're unarmed, fighting the military, fighting the Revolutionary Guard. They had a police terrorist regime. They couldn't do this on their own. What we're doing here is we're setting up the framework, as General Jack Keane said, the conditions to allow for a change of regime. This has to be regime change. Anything less than regime change means only one thing. There'll come a time when we'll have to fight them because they are a death cult dedicated to our destruction and the domination of world civilization and their view of world civilization, and it had to be stopped. So you fight them when we're stronger and they're weaker. And if we didn't do that, we'd rue the day. This would have been a lost opportunity, and thank God, as you say, Eric, a lost opportunity that may never have come back. And we should be very thankful that we have strong, courageous leadership. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia, Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, essayist Eric Lavine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. Please stay with us. We'll be back in about a few moments with more important and interesting conversation.
If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy.
Download and subscribe
at BeBullish.com.